Hey guys, we're gonna do different types of DIY texture pastes. Here I'm gonna show you the types of texture paste that you can make and what they each turn out to be. The first one I'm using is the plaster, regular plaster. You can get plaster of Paris at Lowe's or whatever. You mix it into a bowl with added water. There's no good measurements. It's kind of mix it up to a consistency that you like. I like a thick, like pancake batter consistency, but if you want it thicker, you can add less water and more plaster, or thinner and add more water. So make sure you mix it well, and all the plaster is mixed in very well. I have also two types of canvas here. I have the one part of it has gesso on it and the other part doesn't. So I also shows you how each of them react with and without gesso, because gesso is also new to me as well. So I was wondering and just testing out what the effects were. So here I just did regular plaster, and I did a normal texture with the spoon, nothing fancy. I was going to do plaster with glue, but ended up not having enough time. I had to wait till that old plaster dries before I do more plaster over it. So now I'm doing the joint compound. It comes pre-mixed, and I got it from Lowe's as well. It's very thin, so just put it on, and then I made another texture with my knife. Nothing too difficult from that. I like that way. It's just, I like the joint compound, but it's not as bold as the regular plaster. Plus, the plaster dries a lot quicker than the joint compound, so you just have to make sure and manage your time well with that. The cornstarch I did, just regular cornstarch. I used wood glue and gesso, as well as some water to help loosen and thin it up a bit. I didn't like the cornstarch. I'm going to tell you now. Don't try it. It doesn't give a good effect. It kind of just puddles and doesn't give much texture at all to whatever you're doing. Unless you want a puddle on your canvas or whatever you're doing, then cornstarch is great, because cornstarch is the same material used in oobleck, which is a solid. When you touch it, it turns hard, and then when you stop touching it, it turns into a liquid. So which you can kind of see it does here. So no matter what I did to it, I kept messing with it while it was drying. Nothing helped it. It just continued to puddle down into a puddle on my canvas. One cool thing about this, I guess, was it didn't want to come off the canvas when I was picking at it later in the video. It will pull off the canvas, like it'll pull off part of the back of the canvas before it actually comes off. So I thought that was pretty cool. Alright, so here I'm finally doing the plaster with the glue. I emptied out my old plaster, and I'm going to make another mixture. This is the same mixture, just added with wood glue with it. I think I added a lot more water than I meant to, so you'll see me add more plaster to it. Just do it still the same consistency as you like before, the thickness or the thin consistency. And just keep mixing it all up until it's nice and smooth throughout the entire mixture, and just put it on. And throughout this entire video, there's no precise recipes for anything. Just kind of eyeball it to what you like and the consistency of what you like. Just having the glue in them will help them stick better and help them retain their shape better. So, you know, just mess around with whatever recipe you like and works best for you. So, here's the plaster with the glue in it. I ended up finding out that this worked out the best, I thought. It gave me the boldness of the texture, and it also stayed on the canvas a lot better than if it wasn't with the glue. So this is the baking soda recipe. I added same thing I added with the other one. I add baking soda here though, and glue. I used Elmer's glue here because I used the other glue. It was too much of a gum a gummy consistency, so it didn't really mix well. So I used glue, gesso, and water just to mix up this. This one worked pretty well. Not the best, but it worked better than the cornstarch anyways, which was, it's not much, doesn't say much, but you'll see at the very end. I'll show you what they all look like when they're dry, or mostly dry anyways. These take about 24 hours or longer to dry though, so it's not good for quick projects at all. I would just stick with joint compound and plaster, but if you're in a pinch and you need stuff, this stuff works for different ways. I like the flour the most though. So here's the flour, doing the same mixture as I do the other ones. And when I said I like the flour the most, I like the flour the most out of the other three, the baking soda, flour, and cornstarch. I don't compare them much to the other ones because they don't stand up as well as the rest of them. The normal stuff, the plaster, and the joint compound. The flour does, though, give a cool texture. And it's it's very sturdy, and it gives a really cool different texture, but it still doesn't dry as well. So these are all now dry, mostly anyways. The flour is still kind of squishy where you poke it in some areas, like the thicker areas. Plaster took about 10 minutes to dry. Plaster with glue took about 15. Joint compound took longer, maybe half an hour. Everything else took over 24 hours to completely dry, and is still not completely dry. The regular plaster will kind of crack right off in some parts. The gesso does help a tremendous amount, so I do recommend having gesso on anything that you're going to put texture on a canvas anyways. The plaster with glue, it stayed on a lot better than just the plaster. It held onto the canvas a lot more, and it took a lot more for it to crack, but it did still crack and come off. The joint compound stayed on the best, didn't crack, didn't want to pop off when I would scratch at it. I thought it was the best one out of all, but it still did not have a bold texture that I would like. Here's the cornstarch. Cornstarch turned into a puddle, like I said it would. It also dried with some weird cracks, and you can see there that when I did pull it off, it pulled some of the canvas with it. So it has some extreme hold. Baking powder I couldn't get down, but the baking soda has some texture to it, but I still wouldn't recommend using it at all. It flakes right off. It's just not good. Here's the flour. It has great texture, I thought, but it still just takes a long time for it to dry. It has a very gummy consistency, so that's all that. But I still like the flour. It's all up to you what your preferences are. And that's all then. Goodbye, guys.